So, our next guest speaker today is going to be Sister Lilandra. Lilandra blogs at Ace of Clades, the Ace of Clades blog on the Freethought Blogs Network. She is the creator and co-host of The Nuns, spelled N-O-N-E-S, podcast and YouTube show about science, current events, politics, and religion. Her chosen profession is a science and English teacher in Dallas, Texas. So please welcome Lilandra.
Hello. Okay. I wanted to do a speech today on teaching evolution or creationism, our academic responsibilities versus personal freedoms. First, I would like to express my gratitude to Houston Atheists for arranging this wonderful event and for inviting me to speak today. I used to bring my children here when they were younger, and it's a great honor both for me to speak here and to be among the speakers I greatly admire for their activism in science to advance science education. This event came together on my podcast, The Nuns, as a result of a brainstorming session with Vic Wang, who is, as you may know, an organizer for Houston Atheists. Okay. Two of the other participants of that session are also speaking here today and are both veterans of the battles to keep creationism out of classrooms for more than a decade. P.Z. Myers of Ferengula and the most popular science blog. He has the most popular science blog on the internet, and Arn Ra, the creator of the popular YouTube video series Foundational Falsehoods of Creationism. He also happens to be my husband. Okay. In that session, we were all quite vexed about the Texas Homeschool Coalition featuring Ken Ham of Answers in Genesis as the keynote speaker. I'm sure that a lot of people sitting here know full well that Ham's version of young earth creationism is fundamentally flawed and not suitable for the science education of any child. In fact, the overwhelming majority of scientists agree that when it comes to biology, species evolve naturally over time. Yet there is a constant push here in Texas, not just by creationists like Ham, but by elected officials to teach both creationism and intelligent design as science. This despite that the fundamental flaw in both advocates that there is some point that living things and humans did not evolve naturally over time. Creationism is the most extreme viewpoint, advocating living things existed in their present form from the beginning of time. Here is Ham's workshop schedule, including one on how to correctly interpret the fossil record according to Genesis and not according to the evolution or over millions of years. You can see there he's got a workshop, it's a little small, on dinosaurs and the correct explanation for dinosaurs and why they didn't live millions of years ago. So that's what he was offering yesterday. I heard yesterday, I was outside demonstrating in front of this convention with everyone else. Probably those people who were there with me are a little sunburned. There was like triple-digit heat out there. And he mentioned the demonstration, and he also played a clip of the podcast, The Nuns, and the attendees all had a big laugh at my expense, and he has an issue with me saying that he's an ape scientifically. And to them that's funny, but it's because they don't understand. And he also said that there were 6,000 attendees who signed up for that homeschool coalition, and there were only like a handful of us outside. But that's not the way to determine who's right, whether we should teach creationism or evolution to students. I mean, look at us here today. We have some good attendance, but that doesn't prove anything. That's an argument to popularity. I mean, it would be the equivalent of me saying, well, let's settle this decision with an arm wrestling contest, right? And not me, of course, against Ken Ham, but like me, maybe Ken Ham against my husband back there, or not. that would decide it. Only that's not a good way to do science. Okay. Okay, let's look at the data for a second. According to a 2009 Pew poll, 87% of scientists agree that living things evolve naturally over time. The point is, evolution is not controversial among scientists, and especially biologists, who use it in a number of disciplines. An additional 8% believe that living things evolve with the guidance of a supreme being. You can interpret that small minority a number of ways. Theistic evolution is a belief that a supreme being may have used evolution to create biodiversity. There is a small amount of wiggle room here for intelligent design in that 8%. However, none of the predictions of ID have stood up to scientific testing. ID's main prediction is that some structures are too irreducibly complex to have evolved over time. Creationism accounts for a mere 2% of scientists' opinions on the diversity of life, and perhaps those people that are not involved in biology, geology, cosmology, astronomy, many of science in general, I guess. But okay, my favorite example of the failure of ID's prediction is the claim that the eye is irreducibly complex. In other words, the structures in the eye are too independent to have evolved naturally. This observation was quote mine from Darwin. This is what he said. To suppose that the eye, with all its inimitable contrivances for adjusting the focus to different distances, for emitting different amounts of light, and for the correction of spherical and chromatic aberration, could have formed by natural selection seems, I freely confess, absurd in the highest possible degree. And intelligent design creation is stopped there. As if, oh, Darwin is the final authority on evolution. But if you put this quote back in the original context, context, and again, I saw that the geologists had a little difficulty with the archaic language, or prosaic, or arcane way they worded things back then, but I'm going to attempt this. Yet reason tells me that if numerous gradations from a perfect and complex eye to one very imperfect and simple, each grade being useful to its possessor, can be shown to exist, if further the eye does vary ever so slightly and the variations be inherited, which is certainly the case, and if any variation or modification in the organ be ever useful to an animal under changing conditions of life, this is a really long sentence. Then the difficulty of believing that a perfect and complex eye could be formed from natural selection, though insuperable by our imagination, can hardly be considered real. So that the way he worded that's a little confusing. He's saying that the difficulty of believing that could hardly be considered real. How a nerve comes to be sensitive to light hardly concerns us more than how life itself first originated. But I remark that several facts make me suspect that any sensitive nerve may be rendered sensitive to light, and likewise to those coarser vibrations of the air which produce sound. So, based on Darwin's prediction, if numerous gradations from a perfect and complex eye to one very imperfect and simple, each grade being useful to its possessor, can be shown to exist, if further the eye does vary ever so slightly, that's his prediction. In fact, that's exactly what the scientists that followed him found, exactly as Darwin predicted. That's the beauty of evolution. You can make predictions, even if you don't have the data yet, based on what you already know. Here's an illustration of a pathway to a fully developed eye in mollusk evolution. Notice that all of these animals pictured can be observed by scientists today with gradations that vary slightly from simple to complex in eye development. In fact, had the eyes in these mollusks been intelligently designed or specially created by an intelligent designer, then why did the Supreme Being not upgrade all the mollusks with more complex eyes? Why would he not design living things in the first place to evolve on their own as dictated by their changing environments? The Supreme Being and intelligent design would have had to be an incompetent tinkerer, constantly magically intervening when it decided that one of its designs needed eyes. The supreme being of creationism would have had to create different mollusks separately to look as if they had slightly varying gradations from simple to complex eyes, as if they had common ancestry that changed over time. Evolution explains the development of the mollusk eyes and other eyes more elegantly. If students are taught to understand evolution, they will better understand what they see in nature. The wonders of nature can be unlocked and its secrets put to good use. I'm sure you can see from the diagram, it starts off really simple and becomes what you see. So there's no all the parts are not necessary. You can have gradations from simple to complex. You don't have to have everything all at once. Okay, this is one of my current favorite applications of common ancestry and evolution. It's the study of the nematode C. elegans. This is C. elegans here. You may ask, what is so thrilling about having a common ancestor with a nematode? And why is it glowing blue? Canham and other creationists are not too keen on humans having common ancestry with animals. He found it ridiculous when I explained that he's a member of the ape family and therefore an ape. So again, what's so great about sharing a common ancestor with a nematode, and why is it glowing blue? Okay. That's the exciting part. Scientists at first thought that the blue fluorescence was due to damaged lipids or proteins due to aging, a substance called lipofusin. But then they remembered common ancestry, and that in mammals, lipofusin glows at a different wavelength than the fluorescence emitted by this worm. Then they noticed that these nematodes would glow brighter 2 hours before their death. They found that when they killed younger worms, that they still emitted this glow. So it couldn't be lipofusin, which is accumulated during the aging process. We all have like lipofusin accumulating in us right now. It's kind of like, I heard one scientist call it biological crud, you know. Anyways, what they found was clues to a process in the animal's bodies called apoptosis, which is programmed necrosis, sort of like your body signaling all your cells to self-destruct or a system shutdown when you die. Before this discovery, dying was mainly associated with cellular senescence, which is the DNA having copying errors over time and starting to degrade of all of your cells. So this species of nematode's weird blue glow is a stroke of good fortune to the biologists who tried to figure out what it is. Molecular analysis singled out anthranilic acid. The process was dubbed death fluorescence. When the researchers turned off that chemical's transport through the worm's body by using binding proteins and engineered nematodes with special mutations that block signaling molecules, they could reduce death fluorescence and partially delay death due to causes such as infection and freezing. But they couldn't slow down the process when it came to death by aging. This weird little nematode has no great significance from a creationist standpoint. In fact, death fluorescence, and more importantly, apoptosis, would not have been discovered using a creationist explanation rather than common ancestry. In fact, neither creationism nor intelligent design could have adequately explained or predicted this. Why is common ancestry with this nematode so important? It turns out that mammals, including humans, share the same necrotic pathways that nematodes do. Future research may yield ways to understanding how the process of death works, not just in nematodes, but humans too. If they can understand what is going on at a chemical level, they may someday be able to delay death and prolong life. That's got to be exciting for even for creationists. It kind of reminds me of a country song Arn and I heard in a country store that it went something, I'm not going to sing it though, like this. Everybody wants to go to heaven, but nobody wants to go right now. There are a few creationists that evidence like this, a common ancestry, won't do any good. They still insist that creationism should still be taught instead of evolution. Never mind that, as I have just shown you, common ancestry yields yields real-world results. You can't really understand biology without evolution. I suspect that is where the problem lies for most creationists, that they don't understand evolution well enough to accept it, and some plain just don't want to. Okay. In this video I'm about to show you, Ken Ham is one of those people who I suspect really doesn't want to understand. He's debating Hugh Ross, an old Earth creationist, on scientific evidence in conflict with the literal reading of Genesis to explain nature. Let me see if it works.
I let God speak to me in the best of my ability to not try to impose my ideas on Scripture. I let it speak to me. And one practical example, we would never say that God says brain tumours or cancer are very good, right?
Correct.
But if you believe in millions of years, Dr. Ross believes fossil records millions of years old. In the fossil record, supposedly millions of years before man, there's evidence of brain tumours, cancer, thorns. The Bible says thorns came after the curse. See, what I'm saying is on the basis of the authority of Scripture, that fossil record has to come after sin.
Okay. What Ken Ham was saying was that to Hugh Ross is an old Earth creationist, is that Hugh Ross tries to reconcile science with the Bible. And he was telling him, Ken Ham was, that if you do that, there's evidence in the fossil record like this. This is a Gorgosaurus, a 25-foot-long relative T-Rex, of brain tumors and cancer. This fossil is 73 million years old, according to scientists, right? And that would place it before the fall of man. So if you accept the scientific age of this fossil, that would put cancer, thorns, stuff like that, before Eve, that naughty woman, ate the apple, right? So what he said was biblical authority was more important to him because he's a fallen being. And he's going to listen to what the Bible says. To me, that's an admission that not just that he was indoctrinated to creationism, but also that he has seen separate evidences for the age of the earth, and he has ignored them in favor of his interpretation of Genesis. So no amount of us talking is going to help someone like that. But it doesn't matter. Biblical authority is going to trump scientific evidence for Ken Ham. Not just for him, but for who makes millions of dollars promoting creationism. There are other creationists just like him that you can't reach with evidence. Does his curriculum give students the information to solve biological problems like cancer or maybe even death? No. Without evolution in millions of years, biology doesn't make any sense. It's nonsensical when you try to cram all of it into less than 10,000 years of the creationist model. A common objection people have voiced to me, both by stubborn creationists and some evolution supporters, goes something like this, and that's the objection to teaching evolution. This is a message that an atheist sent me. Guys, I'm an atheist, and I don't care if other people teach their kids the world is 6,000 years old. I grew up in Texas in the Southern Baptist arm of the universe, and they are sick puppies. But if you tell them what they can't teach in homeschool, that regulation can cut everyone. I want to homeschool. I don't want to have some bureaucrat looking over my shoulder telling me what my kid is or not ready for. Homeschool is for those that don't want a cookie-cutter education. It should be their right to impart the worldview as it is mine. Hate and intolerance are the key issues that need the work. Science will work itself out. That message is not just one. The video where we discussed Ken Ham's speech at the homeschool convention received thousands of hits and hundreds of comments, both from creationists and evolution supporters like this. First, to this objection here, I homeschooled my son who had special needs. so I'm not opposed to homeschooling in general. My son doesn't perform well on academic tests due to special needs, and a government bureaucrat may not understand that. But there is some confusion here about whether homeschooling with creationism as science is the same as the right to impart a worldview, which many people take to mean religious worldviews. When a parent homeschools in Texas, according to the TEA, in the case of Leeper versus Arlington ISD, the Supreme Court of Texas affirmed the decision by District Judge Charles J. Murray, holding that a school-age child residing in Texas who is pursuing, under direct supervision of his or her parents, a curriculum designed to meet basic education goals is attending a private school within the meaning of Section 25.086 and is therefore exempt from compulsory school attendance. So according to this Texas state law, a parent that chooses to homeschool their kids is providing curriculum designed to meet basic education goals. Whether or not that parent is concerned that they are preparing their children for college sciences, that parent is supposed to offer a curriculum designed to meet basic education goals. Does creationism meet the basic education needs of homeschooled science students? Not even close. Evolution is complex and requires education to understand. But to put it in simpler terms, if a parent was using a flat earth curriculum to teach science, would that meet basic education goals? An earth that is specially created less than 10,000 years ago is equally ridiculous. And this is a similar comment from a creationist posted about 2 weeks ago on the same video that started the whole problem. Does it not seem ethical to let each individual believe in what they want to? There are more curriculums out there than those that teach creationism. If you don't want that taught to your children, don't buy it. Let the other homeschooling parents decide for themselves. I, as a homeschooler, support this freedom. Don't take Jesus out of my school. I don't get how teaching evolution takes Jesus out of anybody's school. But on the other part of her objection, putting aside for a second the academic responsibility to meet their children's basic science education needs, this sort of objection is one of several that I received that are based on creationists having personal freedoms to decide their children's creationism instead of science. What about children's rights? Do they have the right to teach them false beliefs about the age of the earth, or that the earth is flat? Do they have the right to deny them a blood transfusion based on their religious beliefs? How about to neglect their responsibility to give them an adequate understanding of basic arithmetic, handicapping their ability to simply balance a checkbook? Is that a personal freedom? Is that a parental right? What if your child is gifted with a natural talent for science? Parents want the best for their children, but they are often not qualified to give them the best education. In those cases, there are homeschool resources such as co-ops or online schools to fill in those gaps. However, back on the topic of personal freedoms versus academic responsibility, I leave you today with the story of a Virginia homeschool student, Josh Powell. At the age of 16, Josh realized he didn't know things that other students his age knew. He had never written an essay and couldn't solve a basic algebra equation. He said, "There were all these things that part of this common collective of knowledge that 99% of people have that I didn't have." He pleaded with local officials to allow him to enroll in public school. However, Virginia law states that parents can seek a religious exemption to government oversight. Powell's parents are one of the 7,000 families in Virginia that claim this exemption. Powell's father, Clarence, earnestly wanted to provide an education for his children at home. He stated this: "I think it's important that parents have a role in instilling their children a worldview that does not exclude God," said Powell. "It's a sacred honor to be able to home educate your children and instill them values in a way that's consistent with your faith." He was also aware of his academic responsibilities. As Josh has pointed out, I believe he's 100% accurate. A good education is not an option. It's essential, Clarence Powell says. You basically get one opportunity to do it. If you come out on the other side deficient, it's hard to make up for that. If you're a loving parent, the last thing you want to do is create a situation where your children are limited or hindered. So he is aware of his academic responsibilities with his children. His son, Josh, is now 21, and he had to take remedial classes at a community college to catch up. He now studies at Georgetown University and wonders how much more he could have accomplished if he didn't waste time catching up. He worries about his 11 brothers and sisters' educations, one of whom is 11 and still can't read. He says, "I almost have survivor's guilt." He loves his family and stays in close touch with it, but he said he's frustrated. "I feel like I made it out alive and I'm doing okay, but I'm not sure everyone else can because there's so much that's gotten so much worse." Even going to a public school doesn't guarantee you that you will come out with an adequate understanding of science. There too you have creationists even on school boards raising a stink about evolution and contributing to scientific illiteracy, possibly suppressing the next great cancer researcher or biogerontologist who will help solve some of the mysteries of aging and death. Like Josh, you have to wonder, how much more Texans can accomplish if some of us could catch up to the 21st century? Thank you.